since Andy and I are such big celebrities now, lots of people ask us kind of about our reading history and background. I think a lot of people are curious if we are qualified to have the opinions that we have. The answer to that question is objectively no.
Definitively
no. But today we're going to be talking about our reading journeys, where we began, where we're going. So welcome back to the Life and Books podcast. My name is Tony. With me, as always, is Andy, a.k.a. Metafictional Meathead. Andy, how are you?
Good morning, Tony. I'm doing well. I made some delicious soup last night.
I saw a picture of it. It looked good.
Dude, it was honestly like a top 3 dish I've ever made.
Wow.
It was so good. I did set off the fire alarm.
Okay.
Cooking the chicken.
Yep.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
What kind of soup was it?
Chicken gnocchi soup.
I thought that was gnocchi. It looked like in there. Yeah.
With some shallots and some sun-dried tomatoes.
Oof.
A lot of butter, a lot of Parmesan cheese.
I will take this time to remind our audience that Andy is single, ladies, so he can cook. He does jiu-jitsu, and which is extreme hugging with other people in pajamas.
Yep.
And you read books.
I read books. I lift weights a lot. I forget to water my plants. Sometimes I clean, not very often, not as much as I should, but I can cook. I make great soup.
You don't own a red hat.
That's true. Well, I own a couple of red hats, but not that one in particular.
Right. Okay, so weekly reading updates. What have you been reading lately, Andy? And feel free to drop what you've been reading this past week down below.
I've been reading Europe Central, a little bit of Pale King by David Foster Wallace, and I started Frankenstein for the book club.
Very cool.
Which I'm
struggling with?
Well, not necessarily struggling with, but it's boring the hell out of me.
Okay, fair enough.
I was texting with Buddy about it, and I think he's kind of running in the same boat I am.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know why I thought a book written in 1818 would read differently than this, but it is not. It is exactly how you would expect a book from 1818 to the kind of pacing, the style.
Those were very early days of writing. I mean, obviously writing had been a thing for a long time prior to that, but really like being a published author as a career, it was early days.
Yeah.
So, and she was only 18 or 19 when she wrote that. So
yeah, that's true. I forgot she was that young. I mean, I knew she wasn't old and into her golden years, but I forgot she was that young.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I finished Europe Central.
Yeah.
So hopefully maybe next week we'll do an episode about it.
Yeah. If we're not on the road.
If we're not on the road, or we could do a road episode about it.
Yeah, we could.
Also,
just flip through your sticky pages while you're driving. What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Also, Frankenstein, and the only other real noteworthy update at the moment is I read Tram 83 by Fiston, Mwanza, Mujila, who's a Congolese author.
Yes.
I forget who translated it. It was originally written in French, but it's published by Deep Vellum.
They sent me one of his books.
Yeah.
I think.
Based on the
man, right?
Yes,
okay.
Fiston's man. Yep. Based on the first one, Tram 83, I'm not sure if it's your cup of tea or not, but it's short enough, or this particular book was short enough and easy enough to read that it's worth trying, I would say, for you. What did they send you? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I can find a picture, so
yeah,
he's talking. Keep doing your spiel.
A pretty highly acclaimed author. Tram 83 is kind of about these two friends named Lucian and Requiem.
They sent me The Villain's Dance.
Oh, cool. I think that's his newest one.
That would make sense. I think these are mostly new releases that they sent me.
Yeah, but it takes place in like a fictionalized part of Africa.
Yeah.
They reference real places like other countries and cities, but the place where this particular story takes place is the city-state, and they don't really say like it's. I mean, it's probably just a stand-in for the Congo, but what a complicated history and region that is.
Yeah.
So
certainly.
Anyway,
I did kind of gloss over. I just want to mention I'm loving The Pale King.
oh, cool.
It's awesome. There was a chapter that I read earlier in the week. It's all about a young man in, I want to say high school, maybe middle school, but I think high school, who sweats uncontrollably.
Nice.
And noticing that he's sweating uncontrollably makes him sweat even more.
Yep, as it does.
And the paranoia that he's about to start sweating makes the sweating worse. So all about, it was like a 20-page chapter about this kid who is very anxious about his sweating habits.
Nice.
And how it affects his day-to-day life. It was kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about The Pale King. A lot of people say it's like obvious that it was a kind of unfinished work.
Yeah.
Other people think it's great. It won the Pulitzer posthumously, right?
I don't know if it won, but I know
Or
it was a
nominated?
finalist.
Gotcha.
I'm a little too early into the book to have any opinions on like being able to tell like how it was thrown together. Thrown together sounds a bit negative, but and it's hard because like obviously I know that it was published posthumously, that it was organized by his editor after he passed. I do believe they found the manuscript or what existed of the manuscript when David Foster Wallace committed suicide, but I do believe he left like some instructions or at least tried to like neatly organize what he had written, and then his editor had taken it from there. And it wasn't like it was just some guy at Little Brown or whatever that like it was the same editor that had done at least Infinite Jest and most of his other work. So it kind of had a sense of David's style. But like there's a part of me that can kind of tell like or at least kind of question like, oh, is this how it would have been structured had it had been published in his lifetime? But I'm curious to see kind of how that ends up.
Yeah.
I have heard both sides of the spectrum, like people that are kind of like, well, you can tell that it was just put together with what was left, or that it's incomplete. And then I've heard some other people say that they kind of feel like had David Foster Wallace lived to complete it and publish it, it had the potential to be stronger and a better work than Infinite Jest.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Theoretically, you continue to get better throughout your career, and he was still really young when he wrote Infinite Jest. He was, what, like 34 or something?
He was in his early 30s, yeah.
So probably not quite in his peak yet, honestly.
Right. But like I talked about last week, I think it is it's a very interesting book. In the sense that, like I said, Infinite Jest is kind of about this search for pleasure or the pitfalls of being pleased ad nauseum and having this endless entertainment and addiction and things like that. Whereas The Pale King is sort of the opposite of that, learning how to appreciate and find value in boredom and tedium and the dullness of everyday life.
Yeah.
Which is certainly a challenging thing to do, make boredom interesting.
Yeah.
But I think it gets to kind of the main theme of a lot of his later work, or at least I see some parallels between The Pale King and Oblivion. This idea of choosing what you pay attention to and how you pay attention to it and how you let these things kind of influence your thoughts. It reminds me, which is kind of the main theme of his speech, This is Water, which was fantastic. So, but it's been great. So,
Cool.
and
It's
I'm
quite a bit shorter than Infinite Jest, right?
yeah, I think it's about 600 pages.
Yeah. That's cool.
Who knows how much longer it would have been?
Right. I was listening to an interview with William Vollmann. He was on the True Anon podcast. Are you familiar with this? Did you listen to that interview?
I've heard of the show, and I think I knew he was on, but I haven't listened.
So it started as a podcast dedicated to the Epstein thing, the whole case. I guess because the hosts didn't think that the news media was really covering it with the depth that it should have, which is no surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm not really too familiar with who the hosts are. But anyway, apparently one of the hosts is a big Vollmann fan, and Vollmann had just published an article in a magazine, and the magazine reached out to the podcast and were like, "Oh, we know you're a fan. Do you want to interview him?" So they just like flew out there and randomly interviewed him. It was actually a pretty interesting conversation, but they were asking him about A Table for Fortune because the interview was done, I think, in 2022. So obviously at that point he was
Working on it.
still working on this book because it's 3,000 pages long or whatever. And they were like, the host is like, "Oh, I heard that this book is 1 million words." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, it could be." He said, "I sent it to my editor, and they were not happy because it was 3,000 pages. And they were like, 'Bill, you got to cut this down.'" He's like, "Okay." So I took it back, and he's like, and I cut it down, and I worked on it, and I cut it down, and I worked on it. And when I was done, it was 3,400 pages.
Yep.
So
That sounds about right.
I thought it was pretty funny.
I'm very excited for it. I can't wait.
Yeah, same.
So
Coming in March for those that are curious about that. So anyway, let's talk about
Yeah.
who we are as readers.
Let's get heavy with it.
Ooh, all right. So we're going to talk about kind of our reading lives through adolescence up through adulthood, how our reading has changed over the last couple years now that we're big time influencers. And we'll also talk a little bit about books that we will probably never read. So let's start with, I guess, what is like your earliest reading memory?
I have some like vague recollection of books that I read when I was a kid, single digit age, that I really enjoyed. I don't remember the title or the author or anything like that. Probably like middle school age. I remember like most or like plenty of kids that grew up in New England reading Hatchet and some of the other Gary Paulson books and really liking those. I think those are probably the earliest books that I remember reading and enjoying, at least books that I remember title and author of. And then that's probably the earliest that I remember as far as like books that I read on my own, enjoyed on my own, didn't read them as any part of any assignment or anything like that for school, just picked them up and read them. And then, I mean, I've talked about it before. I don't really remember anything that I read as an assignment in like, we'll say 5th through 8th grade. And then, actually, I remember reading Night by Elie Wiesel in 8th grade. I think that's all I really remember. And then high school, some Shakespeare, Lord of the Flies. What else? To Kill a Mockingbird, Huck Finn. I remember reading that. Great Gatsby, The Things They Carried. That was probably that's pretty much everything I remember up through like my junior year of high school. And then senior year was when I took AP Lit, so it was focus on more reading literature, not just like a short story out of a textbook or something like that. I remember we read, I've talked about this plenty. I read East of Eden, which I loved, and The Poisonwood Bible, which I detested going into that senior year. And then we read, we did Crime and Punishment. We did The Importance of Being Earnest.
Who wrote that?
Oscar Wilde.
Oh.
I remember mostly liking it. It's kind of a play because there's a character, obviously Ernest, like being truthful and stuff like that. And then there's a character named Ernest.
Did you ever see the Ernest movies, like Ernest Scared Stupid?
I don't think so.
Oh, man. This was like I think early 90s thing where these were some very, very low budget films. And there was a whole bunch of them. There was like Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Goes to Jail. And it was around this kind of slapstick hick character named Ernest and all the hijinks he gets into. But Ernest Scared Stupid was like terrified me as a young child. Just the makeup and the costumes. I should go back and rewatch them as an adult because I'm sure they're just so stupid. But okay.
On the note of movies, I meant to mention this during the recap.
Yeah.
I saw Begonia this week.
Oh, yeah.
With Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons.
Is it more woke than One Battle After Another? Since everyone was mad about that film.
Maybe less.
Okay.
It was a great movie.
Yeah,
it
looks interesting.
awesome.
Plemons rarely misses.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
Just because of his history.
Yeah.
I was expecting him to be a little bit more creepy. Not that he wasn't weird and creepy.
Yeah.
But typically he's got that kind of sadistic, like makes your skin crawl creepy factor to him. And
he's been in so many good movies though.
Yeah. In this, he was just kind of a schizophrenic, paranoid conspiracy nut.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which he killed it. I mean, I told you, the acting was phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, the cast is just
the cast was great.
Really good. Yeah.
And then the narrative was really well done, and it was kind of a slow burn, and the tension developed really well. It wasn't like it was just this like, okay, come on, let's get like it. You could really kind of feel it building up.
Yeah.
And getting to that kind of tipping point.
I watched a Plemons movie this past week also, Judas and the Black Messiah.
Oh, I didn't realize he was in that.
Yeah, he plays an FBI agent, and I didn't realize he was in it either. But that movie's all about the Black Panthers and how the FBI murdered Fred Hampton in cold blood and shot him in his sleep, which, great story.
Yeah.
Fantastic movie, though. The soundtrack was incredible. The acting was incredible. It's just a super interesting and sad story in general. I mean, we talked about earlier how Mary Shelley was so young when she wrote and published Frankenstein, and as was David Foster Wallace through most of his published career. I mean, Fred Hampton was like 21 when they assassinated him.
Yeah.
And like, that's crazy how influential he was at such a young age.
Yeah.
For them to see him as that big of a threat. So
right, because it wasn't like he was just like a foot soldier in the party. He was
right.
He was the Black Panther Party.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much picked up the torch from Malcolm X.
Yeah,
who also was assassinated. So anyway, Plemons is great. He's. Did you ever see Vice about Dick Cheney, who's now dead?
No.
Oh, Plemons is in that as well.
Awesome.
That movie is really good.
Yeah.
And his character is very interesting in that movie. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But that movie is worth a watch.
Anyway, back to the conversation at hand.
Yeah.
So, Crime and Punishment.
Yep.
Some Voltaire. We did. I think Candide is what we read.
Okay.
I remember reading Voltaire. I don't remember if it was that one. Heart of Darkness. More Shakespeare. I think when I was a freshman, we did Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
Senior year, we did Hamlet. Somewhere in there, I did Macbeth.
Yeah.
In those 4 years, somewhere in there. Beloved was another one. There was some poetry, some units on poetry. I don't remember which poets we read. They would have been older ones for sure. I think that's all I really remember.
Nice.
That's up through, like I said, through high school.
Yeah.
So
I would say my early memories are similar to yours, where like I remember vague fragments. I remember reading a book about like a samurai and a ninja that I loved as a kid. Mm-hmm. I read a ton of Goosebumps.
Yeah. I didn't read much of those, I don't think.
Oh, really?
I mean, I was even familiar with them, and I probably read one or two, but I didn't read that many.
Yeah. I read a lot of the Hardy Boys. Mm-hmm. I read Animorphs. Did you ever read Animorphs?
No.
Oh, man. Animorphs was classic.
But you know what? I just remembered I read a ton of Encyclopedia Brown.
Oh, okay. Yep.
As a kid.
Yep. Yeah. So are you familiar with what Animorphs is about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really remember too much about them other than like they could turn into animals. They were gifted some power by like aliens or something.
Naturally.
And then, but the thing that made every book super intense was there was a time limit to how long they could be transformed into this particular animal. Mm-hmm. And if they went beyond that threshold, they'd be stuck as that animal for the rest of their life. They couldn't go back to being a human. Yeah. And then they would use these powers to turn into animals to like fight the bad guys or solve the problem. Whatever, I forget what the conflicts were really about, but I just remember being super engrossed in Animorphs. I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stuff, which I remember really enjoying The Hobbit, but I don't really remember too much of the other books in the series. Trying to think what else as a kid. And then as like a more young adult, preteen, early teen, I was really big into Robert Cormier, who I've talked about before. So my absolute favorite book by him was After the First Death, which is about terrorists that kidnap a bus full of kids.
Yeah.
And which is like wild to think about as a theme for young adults. Like that book probably would not get published today.
Yeah.
Or if it did, people would be very upset about it.
I gotta look up because that's making me think of something that I read.
Okay.
But yeah.
He most famously wrote The Chocolate War and I Am the Cheese. I don't know if you read either of those. The Chocolate War was pretty famous. It got turned into a film. There's a sequel to Beyond the Chocolate War, and it's loosely about a kid who's getting bullied in high school, and they have like a chocolate sale through the school, and if you sell X amount of chocolate bars, you get some prize or something.
Yeah.
Like some type of raffle. And there's like a big competition between the kids to sell the most chocolate, and he's like getting bullied. And I Am the Cheese often gets compared to Catcher in the Rye, kind of like a similar vein. Mm-hmm. It's like a book that deals with like, mental illness, I guess.
Yeah.
Tunes for Bears to Dance To, which I've talked about before. That one touches on like anti-Semitism. So he was like writing some pretty hard hitting stuff for YA.
Yeah.
And he was from Massachusetts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He was a New England author. Did you find the book you were thinking of?
Yeah. I don't remember how many of them I read. But I remember reading, at least some of the books from the Tomorrow series by James Marsden. He's an Australian author.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
It's about a group of like, I think it says, Wikipedia says there's 7 of them. They're like teenagers. Mm-hmm. and they live in Australia, and it's about their experience during the invasion and occupation of Australia by a foreign power.
Cool.
And them kind of waging this like guerrilla warfare.
It's very Red Dawn-esque.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I remember enjoying those a lot.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, so that was kind of like up through middle school. So it was I wouldn't say I was like voracious.
Yeah.
But I did read pretty regularly as a kid. And my language skills always kind of exceeded and surpassed all my other intellectual abilities. So I've probably told you this story before, but for those that haven't heard it, I went to a college preparatory high school, Catholic school, and they had a placement exam. And I took the exam, and it was multiple choice. You just pencil in the circle for the answer.
Yeah.
And I go in for my meeting to kind of go over the results and to help me figure out my schedule for my freshman year. And the counselor or whatever is like, she's like, your language skills are like off the charts. You're already like reading and writing at like a senior level in high school. And she goes, but on the math, sometimes what can happen is as you kind of move your hand across the page, you think you're filling in the circle for, question 10.
Yeah.
But you've accidentally like moved down one and you're filling it in for question 11. And then for the rest of the test, you're off. Yeah. You're off. She's like, I think that's what happened with the math and that kind of stuff. And I was like, nope. I'm just that bad at math.
Yeah.
And my freshman year, we had Algebra 1. And at the end of the year, the last day of school, I will never forget this. My teacher calls me in. He's like, I want to meet with you after school. So I go into his office and he's like, look, you've straight up failed this class. Like, you did not pass. But you were such a pain in the ass in my classroom. I do not want to see you next year. So
awesome.
I'm putting you through with like a C-.
Awesome.
At the time, you're like, oh, cool. I don't have to explain to my parents that I failed. I don't have to retake algebra. But then you kind of figure out as you go along that math really builds on itself.
Yeah.
So you need to have the prerequisite skills to perform well at the next level. So math was a struggle for me. And my senior year, they basically had a class specifically for kids like me that were just so bad at math that it was very remedial. And I got shuffled into that, which was funny because at this particular school, when I went there, I have no idea if it's still like this, but they effectively had like three levels of courses. Mm-hmm. They had kind of their standard level of difficulty, which they called level 2. And they had level 1 classes, which were the more advanced kids. And then they eventually had AP for the courses that they offered that for. And I was in level 1 for history, for English, for all that stuff. And then for sciences and math, I was in level 2, and then later in the years, they had even more like remedial stuff. So it was pretty funny. But my senior year, going into senior year, I was placed in AP English. Mm-hmm. I don't remember exactly what we read for the summer reading assignment, but it was stacked. Mm-hmm. I'm 90% sure we read Moby Dick over the summer by ourselves.
Wow.
And then we were supposed to discuss it as the first kind of like book of the semester.
Yeah.
So I was in this AP English class, and at the same time, the next class over was the like senior remedial English. Mm-hmm. And I had a very tight knit group of friends. We were kind of in a clique.
Yeah.
And
you're so cool, dude. We get it.
Well, we were like the edgy. We were like the edgy.
You were cool. You were the man.
No. We weren't the popular kids. We were like the edgy, like in the Breakfast Club, the dude that wears like the knuckleless gloves. That's how we were, you know? We were like the emos. So anyway, all of my best friends are in the like
Yeah.
the stupid kid class next door. And every time I would go into AP English, I could just hear them next door, like causing a ruckus, having a good time. And I was like, I have to get into that. And so I made up some excuse about how like things at home were being tough and I couldn't handle the workload. And so the counselor's like, yeah, whatever, we'll put you in the remedial class. And the day I went in, after the first class I'd had, so I'd only been in AP for like 2 or 3 weeks, I think. The teacher for the remedial class holds me after class and she's like, I'm not stupid. I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And she goes, you're going to do like a hybrid syllabus. So she's like, you're going to continue to read some of the stuff that you were going to do in AP, and then you're going to do some of the stuff in this class. But she's like, I'm not letting you get away with this bullshit.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
I had a similar experience with biology my sophomore year. Because I remember I was in like the honors biology class, and the teacher had like a reputation of being one of the hardest, or being one of the harder teachers in the school, and it was definitely a hard class. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't doing great. I was a punky 14, 15-year-old, whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to do the work. So I went to my counselor and I got dropped down to like the level below it. And I went in and I think it was like, had to have been like right before like midterms or something like that. And I took this test, come back the next week, and the teacher calls me up to class and she goes, how much did you study for this? And I was like, oh crap, I did not do well because I didn't study at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't do well. Like, this is not going to be good. Like, I went from barely getting by in this really difficult class, and now I'm like tanking in the class down. Like, this isn't going to be good. And I told her, I was like, I didn't really study that much at all. And she kind of gave me that look of like, what are you doing here? And she like showed me my grade, and it was pretty close to 100. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just here. Like,
yeah,
I'm 15. I don't want to work that hard. I don't really care about biology.
Yeah. Man, high school was so interesting. So
I remember I used to get into arguments with my senior year math teacher all the time, because we'd learn like whatever the lesson was, and then we'd get out our textbooks and we'd work in groups, and we would do the even numbers out of the problem set, and then all of the odd numbers would be the homework for that night, because the odd numbers, the answers were in the textbook.
Yeah.
But I had done all the evens in class and learned how to solve the problems and things like that. And so I barely did the homework. And then I knew what I was doing, so I would do really well on the tests. But I had like a terrible homework average.
Yeah.
So my grade kept going down, and my teacher was like, you got to do your homework. She's like, Andrew, you've only done 2/3 of your homework. She told me that one time. She goes, Andrew, you've only done 2/3 of your homework. I looked at her, I was like, it's a Hall of Fame average. I don't know what you want from me. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I just got an A+ on this, an A- on this test. Like, come on.
You were at public school?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was tough for me because my brother is older than me.
Yeah.
And he went to the same school. And my brother's probably the most intelligent person I know personally.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, he's an actual rocket scientist.
Yeah.
So there's that. Phenomenal student. And how I figured out that I have ADHD was, and I've probably told you this, but my partner was watching a TikTok and said, oh, I saw this TikTok about ADHD symptoms in adults. Do you think I have ADHD? And I'm like, no, don't. You can't get like information like that from TikTok. You know? So me being me, I go online to find like a legitimate resource from an actual clinician that explains some hallmarks of adult ADHD.
Right.
And I'm watching this video, and this guy literally is describing my entire life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, do I have ADHD? Turns out, yes, I do.
Yeah.
But it made a lot of sense looking back at my performance in high school because I was never a good student until my junior year. My father was like, you're not going to get into college with how poor your grades are, and you need to go to college. And we've tried everything. We've hired tutors. You've done summer school, blah, blah, blah. And this is going back to elementary school, like getting tutors and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, what's it going to take for you to get better grades? And my dad had just bought a brand new Audi A4. And he was actually making quite a bit of money at that time. And I said, give me your car. And he's like, okay. He goes, if you make honor roll, you can have the Audi. And so I made honor roll all through my junior and senior year because I had the motivation of getting the nice car. And we weren't like a super affluent family. We actually qualified for financial aid at this private school. And so there were a lot of kids that were driving brand new Mercedes-Benz and BMWs. And so it was nice to like, I had like some clapped out like Toyota Camry, which I mean, to have any car at 16 is great. But yeah, I kind of realized like, oh, I'm not actually stupid if I apply myself. I'm actually somewhat smart. Yeah. So that was a big learning experience for me. And then, as you know, like when you work in a gym, there's a lot of math to be done as a coach. Yeah. And we would have clients come in, adults that are smart, accomplished people, and just like struggling with a lot of what I would consider like kind of basic math. Yeah. And people would always comment, "Oh, Tony, you're so good at math." And I was like, "No, I'm really not." But what I realized is like the application of how you learn or like the style of learning makes such a big difference. Yeah. And once I had like the motivation to understand the science and the math, it became a lot.
It also helped easier. At least at Architect with everything being color coded. Doing math by colors
for sure
went a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny because I used to joke with people like the summer I did the internship at the gym. I also worked part-time at the Nike store. And then when I came back and started working at the gym full-time, I also went back and did part-time at Nike for a bit. And being at those two places, I got really good at doing percentages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Percentages were obviously huge at the gym because we used it a lot in various programs and things like that. Yeah. And then it worked really well at the Nike store because I worked at the outlet, so we'd have sales on everything all the time. And someone would come up to me and they'd be like, "How much does this cost?" And I knew like the wall they got it off was 20% off. Yeah. So come up, they got $100 pair of shoes. That particular section is 20% off. So, oh yeah, you're going to pay about $80. And
Aga, that's enough. We're doing a podcast.
We're talking about math, bud. And I used to joke like the quicker I could tell someone what this item costs, the sooner they're going to stop talking to me. Yeah. Which was like my ideal working retail. It's like, just leave me alone.
So it sounds, people might listen to that and be like, "Oh, it's percentages, that's easy." But I will tell you, in the gym, and I'm not going to say who it was, but you could probably guess, someone came up to me one time and said, "Tony, can you calculate," I had prescribed, okay, you got to do 3 sets of 10 at 75% of your 1 rep max. Yeah. Someone said, can you calculate this for me? I said, sure. I said, what's your 1 rep max? And they said 100 kilos. And I'm like, come on. But obviously too, like, for those that don't know, the gym was pretty much exclusive. There was a couple machines, cable machines that had pounds.
Yeah, machines and dumbbells.
And the dumbbells were in pounds, but all the kettlebells were in kilos. All of the weight training plates and barbells were in kilos. And so there was a lot of people just curious about like, oh, what does this convert to in pounds just to give them
Yeah.
like a point of reference. So we're doing the conversion a lot in our head or vice versa. And so people were often like surprised by that, but it's just one of those things where it's a skill that if you don't use, you will lose it.
Right.
And so as an adult, you get into the world and you might not just be doing this kind of basic math.
Right.
Those skills atrophy. So
I remember at the Nike store, like trying to teach someone how to do quick percentage math.
Yeah.
And them looking at me like I had 3 heads.
Yeah.
So
we both graduated high school.
Yep.
I graduated in 2003. What year did you graduate?
2014.
Okay. Both of us had kind of interesting college experiences. So where did you go to college? Just take us through your college years and what you were reading, if anything, in college.
I went to NC State for a few years.
Yeah.
I was in business school there. Most
Nice.
of my English classes were related to writing. Some of them more specific, like not necessarily business writing, but like writing for your whatever your field is. So not much reading done there. I vaguely remember reading like on my own, reading some Hunter S. Thompson. Because I was a douchey frat boy, and Hunter S. Thompson, drugs, alcohol, he's the man. And then a little bit of Hemingway, kind of same thing, not necessarily like glorifying that or those things as prominent as Thompson's writing was, but kind of this machismo guy. But that was about it. And then I left and I went to Bridgewater, where I started studying exercise science.
Yeah.
Which again, very little reading. The one English class I took was all about writing. So that's mostly what it was, just practicing rhetorical writing. And then one of the other classes that I took, the only other English class I took at that school was basically it got to a point where I was like, just kind of like checking boxes, because I needed like a humanities credit and a writing intensive credit and stuff like that. And so I was like looking for classes that checked off as many of those as I could. So I wasn't particularly looking at like what we were going to be reading or whatever. I was like, oh, it's humanities, it's writing intensive. That's 2 checks right there. And it ended up being a lot of the more Homeric and Greek and Roman type stuff. Iliad, Odyssey, Aeneid, Ovid, whatever. Oedipus, things like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of those I'd already had exposure to, and I was a fairly strong writer, so I kind of just coasted through that class.
Yeah.
It's funny, similar to your story about trying to switch into the remedial class. The professor I had for that class was very old, and he was quite a talker, and he would always like just kind of rambling go like 5 minutes longer than whatever the class time was. And I had a class clear on the other side of campus after that. And that the class I had after was actually one of my degree specific classes. So I cared about that one significantly more. And I remember I had to give a presentation, and it was something to do with the cardiac type stuff. And I had to do a presentation in that class. And I remember going up to my English professor and saying, hey, I've got this presentation I have to give on the other side of campus. Is it all right if I'll duck out like 10 minutes early today? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Out of curiosity, what's your presentation on? And I was like, oh, it's something to do with congenital heart defects. He was like, what are you studying? Like, exercise science. And he goes, you're a really strong writer. Have you ever considered like an English degree? And I was...
It's a very stoner moment.
Right? Well, here's where Stoner and I differ. I was, again, punky 22, 23-year-old, whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I was like, I already speak English. What do I'm good.
Nice.
So that was kind of that. Didn't really read anything, do much reading at all while I was at Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, nothing was really assigned. It just wasn't really anything I was interested in at that point in my life. I feel like I vaguely remember the summer I came up to do my internship here, doing a little bit of reading because I live in downtown Concord. I was like walking distance from Main Street, Gibson's, all that.
Yeah.
And like one edge, kind of like took a walk down there, picked up a couple things. Didn't really have much taste of my own at that point, so I kind of just like looked for books that I recognized, or authors at least. I think I grabbed some Dickens. I think I grabbed some Dostoevsky. I don't remember what. And then probably like some Jack London, I think.
Yeah.
And I feel like I maybe started the Dickens and didn't finish it. I think I probably read some Jack London.
Mm-hmm.
I think Call of the Wild and White Fang
Yeah.
are the two that are typically like linked. I think I wouldn't really call them 1 and 2 of a series or whatever. I think Call of the Wild is generally the one that people read first. I remember reading that, not finishing White Fang, and then I read The Alchemist that summer as well.
Yeah.
Maybe, I know at some point I read The Four Agreements. I don't remember if it was that summer or not. And then that was about it as far as reading goes until I got back to New Hampshire and started working at the gym full time. And then I've talked about it before, like most young 20-something straight white dudes kind of fell into the trap of reading like personal development, self-help type books.
Yeah.
Some of which I enjoyed. Some of which I was like, this could have been an email. Like, why did I read this whole book?
Yeah. That's probably most of them.
Yeah. And then I remember Brett Bartholomew, the strength coach.
Mm-hmm.
He had put out like a list of books that young coaches should read or something like that. And it was mostly that kind of stuff, like personal development, self-help, training theory type books, things like that. And there were probably a couple novels on there, one of which was Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield.
Yep.
So I got that. I read that. I really enjoyed that. That was, I would say, like post or as I moved into adult life, done with school, everything like that. That was probably like the first work of fiction that really got me. And then someone at the gym had recommended or had been talking about 100 Years of Solitude. So I read that. That one, I've obviously talked about that at length. That one got me.
Yep.
And then somewhere in there after that, I had read American Gods, which I loved. And then from then on, it's kind of been fiction.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, my college is somewhat similar to yours. So my first foray into college was right after high school. I went to Plymouth State University. I did one semester there, and I was studying business also.
yeah.
Had some English classes and writing-centric classes that I enjoyed. But I was in a band at the time, and we had basically just signed like an indie record deal. We had signed a sponsorship with a clothing company. We had studio time lined up. We had recorded a demo. There used to be this recording studio in Manchester in the Mill buildings in the building that Morgan Self Storage is in.
Mm-hmm.
And basically this guy who was a very successful, wealthy engineer, his son was a musician. And his son was probably maybe like 5 or 6 years younger than we were.
Mm-hmm.
and he built this literally world-class recording studio in the Mill Building. And I don't even remember exactly how we got connected with him, but he had heard some like really rough demos that we had recorded like with tapes ourselves. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you guys have a lot of potential. I'll let you record here for free, basically. And this is early 2000s. So now, I mean, you can go to Walmart and buy recording equipment that's going to be pretty good.
Right.
And you can digitally get everything and upload it to the internet by the end of the day. Having the access to a legitimate recording studio at that time was a big deal. So I had dropped out of school to pursue the band full time. And maybe like 3 or 4 weeks after I dropped out, in between semesters, I didn't re-enroll. The band broke up.
Yeah.
The singer was out of his mind, as many vocalists in rock bands are. Mm-hmm. In fact, my best friend, who was the other guitar player in the band, said he just ran into the guy that was the singer in the band. And he's like, it was on Halloween. He goes, he looked like a corpse and he wasn't dressed up for Halloween. And I was like, okay, cool.
Nice.
So anyway, I took a semester off, and then the following year I enrolled at the Tech in Concord. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is high school 2.0. So I did 1 semester there. And then I got transferred into UNH in their Manchester campus. Mm-hmm. And I did most of my college there. I probably had about a semester and a half worth of credits left to do to graduate. And I left again to pursue a job opportunity. I got promoted to a regional manager for Planet Fitness.
Yeehaw.
So the plan was I was going to travel around the Pennsylvania and Delaware areas and open up gyms, mm-hmm. get it up and running, move on to the next one, to the next location. And I did one in York, Pennsylvania, and I was like, this sucks. I hate it. The pay was very good at the time. I was making like $55,000 a year in 2006. So pretty good.
Yeah.
But I was like,
especially in Podunk, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was cool too, because like they paid for they would like have an apartment they would pay for.
Yeah.
So your living expenses were super low, but I hated it.
Yeah.
The area was not great. No offense to people that are from there. And I was just like, I remember getting ready to do Delaware, and I was like, I don't even know anything about Delaware. And I like looked it up, and I was like, I don't want to be there. Even if it's just for 6 months, I don't want to be there.
Right.
So I quit that job and came back to New Hampshire. And during that time in college, I wasn't reading much. I was like pretty much just focused on like partying, playing music, chasing women, riding motorcycles.
Yeah.
As you do. And then when I came back to New Hampshire, I worked first in car sales, and then I sold motorcycles at a Ducati dealership. Those were both interesting jobs for various reasons. And then I kind of got back into the fitness space, and then eventually opened my own business in late 2014. So at that time, I started reading, like you, a lot of kind of like personal development, maybe more so focused on like actual business, because I was a business person. Right. So when we leased the space for the gym, I had no idea about anything. I was completely flying blind in business. I didn't even know how like a lease worked or a business, for a commercial space. And I remember I saw a space online. It was listed on some broker's website. And I reached out to the agent. I was like, can you help me secure this space? And he was like, yeah, I can negotiate the deal for you. And he didn't charge me anything, which was really nice. And then for a grand opening gift, he gave me the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which is a business book. And for as much bullshit as there is in personal development and business writing, that book is legit.
Yeah.
And so if you are interested in starting a business, read that. I didn't get around to reading it until maybe like 5 or 6 months after we had actually opened. And I was like, oh, I wish I had read this beforehand because the author so accurately described so many mistakes that I had already made. Mm-hmm. And I was like, damn, like this is legit. You know, he like described me to a T. So that was a super helpful book. And then I also got really into, or I would say back into, reading a lot more about coaching and training. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I had been doing that obviously because that was my career, but just trying to read like every obscure thing I could find regarding training to really find like unique training methodologies and ideas. Because this is like the burgeoning era of like online information and just like the blind leading the blind, a lot of rehashing of stupid concepts. So I read a lot of great training books. And then I kind of got into collecting training books. So vintage strength training stuff, because like exercise as a concept isn't that old.
Right.
Really,
especially as a science.
Right. Really like the early 1900s is when it really started to become like a very formulated thing. There were like gymnasiums prior to that, but they were more just like cultural hubs.
Yeah.
People just doing whatever, wrestling around or climbing ropes and stuff. So yeah, I started collecting vintage training books, and then I tried to build the most complete library on weightlifting texts, specifically to the sport of weightlifting, as our viewers might know it as Olympic style weightlifting, but we don't call it that in the sport. So I think I probably at one point had the most complete weightlifting library. I had Fundamentals of Sports Training by, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but basically it was the first book on...
Was that Sif?
No, it was way before Sif. It was a Russian guy. It was literally the first book on like periodization, like long-term planning of training.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't Bompa, was it?
No, it was before Bompa too.
Wow.
Yeah, it was real old.
Yeah.
And this sent me and our friend Gunnar down a huge rabbit hole because there were only 500 copies translated in English. And it was published by this publishing company that basically was like a front for like the American Communist Party. And they had strong ties to Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
The majority of the stuff they printed and distributed here was very political. Books written by Lenin. And so it was like kind of weird. So Gunnar ended up collecting all of their stuff. I think he still does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had some really wild books.
It's funny because I remember once this probably would have been after you had sold the gym and were transitioning out of fitness.
Yeah.
And you were like, I don't need these books anymore. And you were like, selling them. This is probably, whatever the title you just said, it's probably this book. But I was still coaching, so I was interested in some of them. And this happened to be one of the books that you were selling. Mm-hmm. And I asked you about it. And you were not my boss at the time, but you were still in tune to at least how much I was making.
Matveyev.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I asked you about it, and you're like, dog, you can't afford this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
I actually had 2 copies. I think I still have a copy. El Matveyev, and it was Progress Publishers was the name of the outlet.
Yeah.
So, but at that time I was also reading. So this was around the time that our good friend, Jordan B. Peterson, was kind of making his rise to fame, 2015, 2016. And our friends, Jared and the guys on his podcast, Sarcasm Speaks, they were big Jordan Peterson fans. And from the get-go, I thought, this guy's full of shit.
There was a brief moment in time where I was almost a Peterson guy.
I listened to probably 40 to 50 hours of his lectures because I was curious, like, what does everyone think is so great about him?
Right.
And I would say, like, early on, a lot of the stuff he had already had kind of like put on the internet was fairly innocuous. Like,
yeah.
But I listened to it. I was like, this guy seems a little bit full of shit. But I was curious too, because he had put together a like recommended reading list. And so I went through that and I read a lot of that. So like 1984, Brave New World, The Painted Bird by Jerzy Kosinski, which I think completely sucks. Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning, which is a nonfiction about how the Nazis were able to turn like policemen into killing squads. So there are a lot of actually very good books on his original reading list. So I was like got kind of back into reading non-training books in that time, but I also was really into a lot of like narrative nonfiction. And I did read a lot of like personal development as well. One that kind of stood out. What the hell is it called? I say it stands out. I can't remember what it's called. It's like something about Rejection Proof, I think it's called.
Okay.
And basically, it was about this Chinese entrepreneur who had a dream of becoming an entrepreneur, and he wanted to build some app or something, and he needed to get funding, and he kept getting rejected, and I couldn't find funding for it. And so he was like basically like paralyzed by fear of failure. And so he did this experiment where he like intentionally tried to get rejected for various things for like 100 days, or I forget what the context was, but he would just like come up with these scenarios to put himself in where it was pretty much guaranteed he would get a no.
Yeah.
So he would just like walk up to a stranger and be like, hey, can you give me like $200? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was actually very interesting and kind of a fun story. It went like pretty viral because at one point he walked into like a bakery and he asked them to make a custom cookie in the shape of the Olympic rings, because I think it was right around the Olympics. And they ended up doing it. And I think he filmed all of it too. And so that like kind of went viral. It was a pretty interesting book. And then when I was in the hospital, one of the times, the first time, I read some Turgenev. And the way that I came upon that was I was reading a training book called The Primitive Training Method or something like that. And this is one of those guys, the author was one of those guys who was like, this isn't just like sets and reps and exercise selection. You know, this is a lifestyle and a mentality, and you need to train your mind as much as you need to train your body, and you should be reading like great literature. And he was a big fan of the Russians. So I went out and got like The Brothers K, Sportsman's Notebook by Turgenev, a couple others. And I read that when I was in the hospital for a week. Probably wasn't like really ready for a text like that.
Yeah.
Along the way too, I had also read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series to try to get back into fiction. That was probably a little bit earlier on, but
I think I have a similar story of how I kind of transitioned into reading more fiction. I was coming up as a coach, and obviously social media was a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it still is, but I followed plenty of coaches and trying to learn from them and stuff like that. And it was around the time that like Guns, Germs, and Steel, Sapiens, like all of those, a lot of Malcolm Gladwell, like those books were really popular. And I had read some Gladwell, and I was like, well, okay, this is interesting, but like, what do I do with it now? Like,
right.
There was no, I remember finishing those books and like, there's no actionable steps to take with this information.
I think I read Outliers and maybe one other. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember reading Outliers and thinking like, okay, this was all really interesting, but like, what do I do with it?
Cool. Yeah.
And this coach that I followed was kind of had shared like a similar thing. Like yeah, these books are interesting, but like, how are they going to help you? Like, what are you going to take away from this book that's going to help you be a better coach? And then he started talking. I don't remember if he gave any examples, but him kind of talking about reading narrative fiction, being like, yeah, if you read something like this, you're going to feel actual emotions and read actual stories and feel connected to characters and to people and to thoughts and ideas and emotions. And then you're going to have a client come in that's going to share a story or show some emotion that you've recently felt reading this book. And then you'll be able to connect to that person because you have an understanding of, or are able to feel more empathy towards their story than just knowing whatever bullshit you picked up from reading Malcolm Gladwell about people that worked in the garment district 100 years ago. And then, so like I was saying earlier, like I read 100 Years of Solitude and American Gods, and then eventually Gravity's Rainbow, and I've talked about that story plenty of times. And like after that,
hour 10 in,
it couldn't not come up in this conversation. I read a little bit, some nonfiction after that, but pretty much since then, it's just been fiction. It just scratches that itch for me. As far as, at least, like, I'm at a point now where like I'm not worried about what I read, how it affects my ability to do my job. As long as I'm not like getting distracted at work, thinking about what I read last night and or like sitting at my desk reading when I should be doing my job. But as far as like, you know, I still want that ability to connect to people, but largely like entertainment and mental stimulation, and fiction just does that for me. So
I was kind of dabbling once again. I knew I had done a few different social media projects. Obviously I did a lot of stuff around strength training when I had the gym, but nothing really, well, I shouldn't say that, but like I was too impatient and I didn't think the results were like worth the input. And then I sold the business, started another business, which financially was so much more lucrative than the gym. But I kind of hated it. I was making my first year doing my new business full time. I made a ton of money, but I was like, I literally am dreading every single day. So I kind of had this conversation with myself where it's like, well, what do I want to do? And I was like, man, it would be great if I could get paid to read. That would be cool. How do I do that? And I had put online, and if you go way back to this channel's early posts, you can find some of this content. I had done kind of videos touching on books, but I didn't really think there was like a viable market for it. And then I remembered, or Kit, you had started your Metafictional Meathead Instagram separate from your kind of personal one. And I remember just being like, oh, whatever. And I don't even think I followed it initially.
no, you didn't.
And then you were getting into like really kind of obscure books. And then I don't know how far along it was, but at some point you shared something about like your account, and I think you had like 900 and something followers. Maybe you just hit 1,000.
Something like that, yeah.
And I was like, what? I was like, Andy has 1,000 followers on Instagram.
And I wasn't really even posting anything that interesting. Maybe like a couple paragraph long review here and there, but it was mostly just like, yeah, I finished this. I'm reading this now.
And so I was like really impressed because I had never had an Instagram account other than like for my businesses that had grown to that size. So that seemed like a lot to me, which is funny now. But I was like, damn, maybe this is doable. So then I just made myself the promise that I'm just going to do this until I figure out how to make it work. And that's how the Life on Books,
and the rest is history,
happened. But there was still a lot of shifting going on in my personal reading during that time. Because what so many people say when they start a social media project is the advice is like, pick a niche. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a one-dimensional person. I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that. And it's like, cool, but like you're not that interesting to random people.
Right.
That they want to know every aspect of your life. They want to know if you're an expert on something or you have a heightened interest in something that you can connect with people on that also have a heightened interest in that topic. That's how you succeed. And I was like, well, my niche is books. That's going to be my niche. And then I kind of realized fairly quickly, like, that's not a niche.
Right.
That's an industry.
Yeah.
That's a topic. And I looked at a lot of the accounts that were 20,000 followers, 100,000 followers. And I noticed that they're all very genre specific. So they either only talk about self-help or science fiction or horror. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to pigeonhole myself that much.
Right.
So I tried to kind of be fairly broad. And I would say to a degree, that is still somewhat the case. Yeah, I think like I was still trying to read some nonfiction, some history, and some philosophy, and some fiction.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just like organically became more focused on fiction. It wasn't like a conscious choice like, oh, this is what's working, so I'm going to go down more. Like the podcast is a big part of it because it's more fun when you're reading books that
are similar.
You can talk with your friends.
And I remember, I think it was even before we started the pod, or we had like just started. I was like throwing, like, I'm loving this book. You got to read it.
Right.
You got to stuff like that. Not even considering like this will make for more interesting topics. Just like recommending books to a friend.
Yeah. And then early on too, there was like a belief that, and I've talked about this a lot in other places and probably here too, but there was a belief that you have to talk about popular books
Yeah.
to see success on social media. And the two posts that were really pivotal in breaking that belief were the Bridget No Gunry, which is about the Korean War, a very specific event in the Korean War. That video did like 150,000 views on Instagram.
I think I still get notifications because I left him some stupid comment.
Yeah.
And like people will still.
Yeah, I might have pinned it actually to the top.
That's how I've gained most of my followers is just leaving stupid comments on your posts.
I mean, yeah, you hardly even post on Instagram these days.
Yeah.
And then the Hard Rain Falling review.
Right.
So two very obscure books. We ended up connecting with the folks over at NYRB, and effectively that review drove about 12,000 sales.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously there's not a huge profit margin in books, but when you look at like the revenue generated, I'm like, damn, like I might have like paid somebody's salary with that. You know what I mean? So, so it kind of just like made me realize that, you don't have to talk about popular books. It's all about how you craft the content and how you frame it and how you talk about it. And it's not possible to hit a home run like that every time. You don't necessarily want to.
Right.
Because it's not just about views and followers. It's about actually like providing legitimate content to people, reviews and connecting with people. So yeah, over the last couple of years, it's been predominantly fiction. We have a whole community of readers now on Discord. That's where the most of the conversation is focusing. When we had Seth on for the Postmodern podcast episode, he had even said, he's like, I don't really know how to describe what your podcast is about other than books.
I don't know how to describe it other than books.
Yeah. And it's kind of a fun thing to think about because like there are literally podcasts. I'm not a really big podcast person. So I guess I didn't know this going in, but there are literally podcasts that are like, this podcast is about this one specific event.
Yeah.
We're going to cover it and then the podcast is done. And you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize like that's a thing. There's a podcast about William Vollmann's books specifically called Vollmania.
Yeah.
There's
There's a podcast about the Great American Novel.
a podcast about the Great American Novel. There's ones about, obviously there's ones that are just genre specific and ongoing. But there are podcasts about just works in translation or whatever. So, yeah, it's a slower road when you go broad, but I think the ceiling is ultimately much higher and so there's more long-term potential. But interestingly, we've kind of been associated now with like works in translation, obscure books. But I would say like my reading is still my reading taste is still kind of developing. And I was really reading a lot of work in translation, and I still do, but I've kind of like started to swing back to like American literature.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Definitely still like obscure stuff or lesser known stuff. But so how would you say your reading has changed in like just this year in 2025?
I think it's kind of in a similar vein. Like I still hunt things out that are a little bit more obscure or lesser known. I think something that, to steal a phrase from Seth, that I really like, works of fiction that are difficult and demanding, not easily explained.
Yeah.
It's funny whenever I get a question from people and they're like, "Oh, what do you like to read?" or "What kind of genre do you like?" Genre?
Yeah.
I don't.
It's not something we even think about.
Right. I very rarely think about it.
Yeah.
I would say lately, at least post hospital stay, and as I've been getting back into regular training, both in the gym and jiu-jitsu, work I have a pretty stressful job. Like sometimes I get home at the end of the day and it's like I want to read, but I don't have the bandwidth for something like Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
I would say, and I still stand by what I've said in the past about how the plot isn't necessarily the point.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a part of me that like, I need something now. Like there needs to be a narrative to kind of carry the book. There needs to be some tension, something that's going on. It's not just kind of a 600 to 1,000 page like stream of thought,
Right.
So
writing for the sake of writing.
Yeah. And not to discredit any of those books, but like I need something to latch my teeth onto.
Yeah.
To kind of hold me over and keep me interested, so that if I don't pick it up for 2 or 3 days, there's something that I'm picking back up. This is what happened last time, and here's where it's going from here.
There's this test that this guy made. It's kind of going viral right now, and there's 24 like questions, and you answer how likely you'd be to read it. And then it's supposed to tell you like what type of reader you are, and then makes book recommendations, which is fine. But I did it just out of curiosity, and it made me realize like how disconnected I am from mainstream books, because literally all it gives you is what the book is about. Oh, a scientist makes a breakthrough discovery into a portal to another realm, and they're shocked by what's looking back at them. It's like, I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't know if this is stuff that he just made up or if this is actually referencing a real book.
Right.
But it's like, if that was what you gave me to make a decision,
I wouldn't read it.
The answer is no.
Right.
And I actually have a video that'll probably be out by the time this airs, kind of talking about how to craft a good book review or how to talk about books. And one of the things I talk about in that video is sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about how a book made you feel. Don't just give me the nuts and bolts of the story, because theoretically, there are certainly instances where the synopsis is a very interesting sounding scenario. However, if the entire sales pitch, effectively, that's what it is, a sales pitch, is on like how clever the what happens in the story is, like that doesn't really tell me anything about the book.
Yeah.
Like a great writer, and Stoner's a good example, right? Like neither of us really liked that book. I mean, I DNF'd it. And it's objectively a book about nothing.
Right.
But a lot of people don't mind that it's a book about nothing because they think the writing is great and the way the story about nothing makes them feel.
The way they connect to the character.
Right.
Yeah.
If you just told somebody what Stoner was about, I don't think people would be interested in reading it.
Right.
But people get interested in it because someone like Nick from Books Are Sick says, this is my favorite book. This is the best book I've read.
Yeah.
And then you're like, this guy talks about books every day. I'm curious because it really impressed him.
Right.
It's communicating the way it made him feel. So kind of like what you were saying with like difficult and demanding books, when people ask me what kind of books I'm into, I usually just say important books.
Yeah.
And that sounds very pretentious, but what I mean by that is like books that were written with a very meaningful purpose.
Yeah.
Like people that were living through something that they had to speak out about, or a book that somebody wrote and it changed something about culture or society, or really often changes the way people think about a particular thing.
Yeah. I usually just am like, yeah, I like fiction that's from post World War II. And
but that's still very broad. That doesn't
it's still
necessarily
very broad, but like it's better than I don't know how to, And
I mean, Fourth Wing is technically fiction that's post World War II.
Yeah.
So
technically, but I have a feeling that people that are
I get you.
like that type of book, they're going to be like, oh, I like fantasy smut.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just saying,
They're
like,
going to give you a genre.
Right. But it doesn't necessarily, like saying that you like fiction post World War II doesn't really indicate what that is exactly.
Yeah.
Where like, if you say like difficult and demanding, I think that is much more clear.
I typically throw that in too, but it's like when you go to a bar and you just show up and there's all of your friends are there and someone asks you what you want to drink and you panic order a Bud Light. Because
Right.
I don't know, Bud Light. It's like that right there.
Yeah.
Speaking of, that's right. I was supposed to be getting drunk for this episode. I forgot.
Oh, right. Do you know who Jack Edwards is? He's a very famous booktuber, like millions of subscribers.
Yeah. I've
seems like a nice enough chap. Not really the type of books or content that we are into, but he's been landing himself some celebrity interviews with like actors and stuff. And there's a new film coming out with Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi, I think his name is. Yeah, he's like he's the British actor. He plays like the bully in Euphoria.
Yeah. He's one of those ugly guys that like tons of people have convinced themselves are hot.
I don't know. I think he's a
right.
sharp-looking young man, but I'm not into dudes, so I don't know.
Maybe ugly's a stretch, but like pale, sickly, Victorian era.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, in Euphoria, he plays kind of like a buff jock, I think. But he was a weirdo in Saltburn.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No.
That movie's wild.
Okay.
But anyway,
this episode is just...
Look, somebody said that we had earned a whatever episode.
Yeah.
Talk about whatever we want. They're like, you guys have done so many just dedicated to books.
Yeah.
Like you're due for one about whatever. But so Jack Edwards interviewed these two guys for their new movie. I don't even know what the new movie is. But he always brings books into the conversation because he's a book influencer.
Yeah.
And he said, what are some books that have been sitting on your shelf unread for a long time that you really need to like dust off and read? And Elordi said Ulysses and Gravity's Rainbow. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I just read Vineland because I saw One Battle After Another and I thought it was great. And so he's like, I read Vineland but I've had Gravity's Rainbow forever and I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
So here's kind of a funny story. I told this when I was when I did a guest appearance on the 2-month review talking about Vineland because Dad asked me kind of my experience, like my foray into Pynchon.
Yeah.
And this was like my first reading of Gravity's Rainbow. It took me like 4 months, but I was just obsessed with it, right? And obviously that whole book, or a large part of that book is about paranoia and being paranoid about the interconnectedness of things and the paranoia that creates.
Yep.
And I'm sure you felt this with like certain books where you read something and kind of the themes of the book, the ideas of the book kind of start to inject themselves into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like noticing just random shit.
You became a paranoid freak?
Yes. In short, yes. So I'm home one night, like a week or two after I finished the book. I'm home one night. I'm watching Knives Out, the first one. And there's a scene where Anna de Armas's character and Daniel Craig are outside. And I forget how it comes. I think he says something about Gravity's Rainbow. I don't even think he's specifically talking about the book. I think he just says the term. And she goes, Gravity's Rainbow, what's that? He goes, it's a long novel nobody's ever read. And I had just like a week before finished it.
Yeah.
And I'm in this like paranoid just state of mind. I paused the movie and I'm like checking through the blinds. Like who's watching me? What is going on?
Nice. That's awesome.
So
fantastic. So do you want to talk about books we'll probably never read? Do you want to save it for another day?
I mean, we could talk about it a little bit. I don't feel like this is what I was talking about when I messaged you.
Yeah.
Like, we could certainly bullshit our way through an episode, but
that's what we do anyway.
We're kind of doing that now. I mean, aside from the obvious, like Mein Kampf and other racially charged, anti-Semitic works like that.
Yeah.
There's not. I probably won't ever read any sort of like romantasy type book because that's just not my thing.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in 7th grade writing. Something like we were talking a little bit about, like A Little Life last night. I'm not really interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any though? Are there any that are like in the realm of like what we do though?
I mean,
because I have a pretty solid list. I think
it's hard for me to say never, but like reading Frankenstein right now, I have a hard time believing I'm going to read anything pre-1900 anytime soon.
Okay.
Most of what I'm interested in right now is like 1960, we'll say 1950s onward. I've talked before about how it didn't really get credit for it at the time, but looking back, the Recognitions is kind of this like linchpin of modern esoteric writing, and that was published in 55. So a lot of what I'm interested in is like 1955 onward.
Yeah.
Certainly, I would like to read Ulysses, which was early 1900s. It would probably behoove me to read some Virginia Woolf at some point. And then there are other classics that, again, like it would probably be good in my quest to be a well-read reader to read some Dickens, to read some Tolstoy, maybe read some of the older Russians. But at this point, like I don't really have a ton of interest in that.
Sure. All right.
So I don't really have a very extensive like never list. There's just a lot of books that I'm not really interested in this time, but that might change.
Here's a question. What do you anticipate might change over the next year? So what do you think you're going to be reading in 2026? If it's going to be anything different than kind of what you do now.
Honestly,
which is all straight white men.
Right. Honestly, I want to do a lot more rereading.
Okay.
I wanted really the only book that I'm like, I'm going to read this in 2026 is A Table for Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, there's just a lot of stuff I want to reread.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm hesitant to make any sort of like long-term plans for reading.
Yeah.
Because the last 2 times I've done that, I went through a horrible breakup and then I had brain surgery. So like,
yeah, buddy. Good times. Well, A Table for Fortune is basically the length of 6 regular size.
Yeah,
books.
right.
So that'll attribute for at least a month and a half of reading. Cool. Well, on that note, we will we'll call it a day. If you want to share kind of what your reading journey has been like, I always think it's fascinating to see how people's reading habits have changed and kind of why.
yeah.
Because I feel like our book club has been fairly good at piquing the interest of people that aren't reading a lot of this type of stuff already and getting them into it.
Right.
Like a lot of people read Vollmann for the first time for Europe Central or read that kind of author
Right.
for the first time. Same thing with A Naked Singularity. A lot of people weren't reading like any postmodern stuff or more experimental stuff. So yeah, share what your journey's been like. And then next week you can join us as we talk about
books.
All right. See y'all later.